Boy missed his foster hearing to stop a kidnapping. Next morning, angels handed him house keys. Noah Reed was 3 blocks from the courthouse when he heard a child scream, the kind of scream adults pretend not to recognize. Short, muffled, and ripped off mid-breath like someone had slapped a hand over a mouth. He froze on the sidewalk with his folder of papers clutched to his chest, the words, "Foster Hearing," 9 a.m. stamped in his mind like a brand. Then he saw the van door slide open, saw a small sneaker kick the air once, and watched a man's arm yank a little girl inside like she weighed nothing at all. His feet moved before his brain did. The van was parked crooked near a closed laundromat, engine already humming, exhaust puffing like it was impatient. 2 men, one at the wheel, one half outside, moved fast and practiced, not frantic, professional. The girl's backpack hit the curb and split, spilling crayons and a cheap plastic doll into the gutter. Noah sprinted. His sneakers slapped the pavement, his hearing, his chance, the only thing in his life that had ever felt like a door about to open. And now, this. "Hey!" Noah shouted, and his voice cracked like he wasn't 16, like he was 8 again. "Let her go!" The man outside turned, eyes flat like Noah was a fly. He shoved the van door harder. The girl's face flashed for half a second, tear-streaked, cheeks red, mouth gagged by a sleeve pressed tight. Her eyes locked on Noah. That look didn't beg. It latched. Noah slammed his shoulder into the sliding door before it could shut. Metal boomed. His shoulder screamed. The man outside cursed, grabbed Noah's hoodie and yanked him backward. "You stupid!" the man hissed, breath sour. He was bigger than Noah by at least 50 pounds, forearms corded, tattoos hidden under long sleeves. He moved like someone who'd learned how to hurt without leaving obvious marks. Noah's folder flew out of his hands, papers flapping like white birds panicking. One sheet landed face up on the pavement, notice of placement hearing. The driver revved the engine. Noah dug his heels in and shoved again. The door rattled. The girl inside squirmed, tiny hands clawing for air. The man outside tried to pry Noah off like he was stuck gum. Noah did the only thing he could think of. He screamed louder. "Help! Someone call 911! They're taking a kid!" 2 people across the street stopped. A woman holding a coffee stared, blinking like her brain couldn't catch up. A guy with headphones turned his head halfway, then looked away like he didn't want to get involved. "Call!" Noah roared at them, pointing with a shaking hand. "Call right now!" The coffee woman fumbled in her purse. The headphone guy pulled one earbud out, eyes widening. The man outside the van saw it, saw the phones. His grip tightened. "You're dead," he muttered, not dramatic, just calm, like a grocery list. He punched Noah in the stomach. All the air left Noah's lungs at once. His knees buckled. The world narrowed to pain and asphalt. He tasted bile. He still held the edge of that sliding door with his fingertips like it was a cliff. Inside the van, the girl made a sound that wasn't even a cry anymore, just a panicked wheeze. Noah forced breath back into himself, lungs burning. He hooked his foot under the van's door track and jammed. The door didn't close. The driver leaned out, face sharp, eyes scanning the street. "Get off him. We're late." Late. Like this was a pickup, like there was a schedule. Noah lifted his head and saw something in the driver's hand. His phone, pointed toward Noah, recording. A setup. The man outside shoved Noah hard. Noah stumbled back, caught himself, then lurched forward again because he couldn't stop. He couldn't just stand there. Not when that little girl's eyes had grabbed him like that. "Let her go," Noah coughed out. The man outside laughed once. "What are you going to do, hero? Miss your little court date?" Noah's stomach turned cold. How did he know? Noah swung without thinking, more flail than punch. His fist grazed the man's jaw. The man's head snapped to the side, not from the force, but from surprise. Then the man's expression changed. He smiled, like Noah had just done exactly what he wanted. The driver raised the phone higher, steady, filming Noah's fist, filming Noah close to the van, filming the man clutching his jaw like he'd been assaulted. A narrative, built in real time. Noah realized it at the same moment the man outside grabbed him again, forcing him toward the open door. "Get in," the man whispered, friendly now. "We can talk." Noah jerked away, eyes wild. If they got him in that van, that was it. He didn't have a family to come looking. He didn't have a neighbor who'd notice he didn't come home. He'd just disappear. Like the kids you hear about on late-night news, then forget because the world keeps spinning. No, Noah barked, scrambling backward. The driver's eyes flicked down the block. A car turned the corner, slow, like someone had heard the yelling. A delivery truck rolled by, the driver staring. The man outside cursed again. He glanced at the girl, then at Noah, calculating. And Noah saw it, saw the man's hand drop into his pocket, saw metal flash for half a second, something sharp. Noah's pulse thudded in his ears. He didn't wait to find out what it was. He did the second dumbest brave thing of his life. He grabbed the spilled backpack from the curb and hurled it into the van. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't meant to be a weapon. It was a desperate interruption, but it hit the driver's phone hand, knocking the phone sideways, and the backpack strap snagged on the steering wheel. The driver swore and yanked, attention breaking for 1 second. Noah lunged toward the open door and reached inside, just far enough to grab the girl's wrist. Her skin was freezing. She tried to pull back, terrified, not understanding if Noah was saving her or another threat. "It's okay," Noah rasped, voice raw. "It's okay, The man outside slammed his forearm across Noah's throat and ripped him away. Noah gagged, eyes watering. "Enough!" the driver snapped. "Go!" The man outside shoved Noah to the ground like tossing trash. Noah hit hard, shoulder and hip, the pain blooming hot. Papers scattered. One page fluttered right into the gutter and soaked up dirty water. The van door finally slammed. The engine roared. Noah pushed up on his hands, coughing, trying to stand, trying to chase. He got 1 foot under him. The van lurched forward, and the coffee woman screamed, I called 911! Noah looked up just in time to see the van's back window. The girl's face pressed against it for a heartbeat. Then it was gone. The van shot down the street, turning hard at the next intersection, tires squealing. It vanished like it had never been there. Noah stood there shaking, lungs on fire, hoodie half torn, papers plastered to the sidewalk. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A calendar alert he'd set 3 days ago. Foster hearing, 9 a.m., don't be late. He looked at the time, 9:03. The courthouse was still 3 blocks away. Noah's vision blurred, and for a second, he didn't know if it was rage or panic or the sudden certainty that he'd just ruined the only shot he had. Sirens wailed somewhere far off, too far, like the world was always 2 steps behind the people who knew how to move. The headphone guy jogged over, pale. Dude, are you okay? What happened? That was insane. Noah swallowed, throat bruised. They took her. Who? I don't know, Noah snapped, then forced himself to breathe. Think. Details. He needed details. This wasn't like movies where police magically know everything. Real life demanded specifics Noah didn't have. He scanned the street like replaying a nightmare. Closed laundromat, rusted sign, a billboard on the corner. A security camera above the pawn shop across the street, small black dome, pointed toward the sidewalk. A chance. Noah's eyes locked onto it. Camera, he muttered, stepping toward the pawn shop. His papers crunched under his shoes. There's a camera. The coffee woman approached, trembling. Honey, are you hurt? I told the dispatcher, white van, 2 men. Did you see the plate? Noah asked, desperate. She shook her head fast. It happened so fast. Noah clenched his jaw, fighting the urge to scream again. His stomach still hurt from the punch. His throat felt like sandpaper. And then he noticed something else on the pavement near where the van had been. A small object, half hidden under his hearing papers. A keychain. Noah crouched and picked it up. Plastic, cheap, shaped like a cartoon angel with little wings. The kind you win from a claw machine. Why would kidnappers drop something like that? He turned it over, and his stomach dropped. On the back in faded marker, someone had written a name. Ava. Noah's fingers tightened until the plastic creaked. He looked down the street where the van had disappeared, heart hammering. Ava. Now she wasn't just a random kid. She had a name. And Noah had missed court to stop her from being erased. A siren grew louder, nearing. A police cruiser finally turned the corner, lights flashing, slowing by the laundromat. An officer jumped out, hand on his belt, eyes scanning the scene. You, the officer called, spotting Noah's torn hoodie and scattered paperwork. What happened here? Noah opened his mouth to answer, but his voice stuck for a second behind the bruise in his throat and the weight in his chest. because what he wanted to say was simple. I did the right thing. But he'd lived long enough in the system to know something else was also true. Doing the right thing didn't mean the world would reward you for it. The officer approached, gaze dropping to the papers on the ground. He picked one up, read the heading, and raised an eyebrow. "Foster hearing?" the officer said. Noah's stomach clenched. "Yeah," Noah whispered. The officer looked from the paper to Noah's face, then back to the street. "And you decided to get into a fight instead?" Noah's blood went cold. The story was already forming in someone else's mouth. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from, because what happens next depends on who's ever had to prove the truth when nobody wanted to believe it. Noah lifted the keychain in his hand. His fingers were still shaking. "They took a girl," he said, forcing each word out like it mattered. "Her name is Ava, and I can prove it." The officer's expression didn't soften. It tightened. "All right," he said slowly. "Start from the beginning. And don't leave anything out." Noah stared at the flashing lights reflecting in the pawn shop window, at the security camera above the door, at his own hearing papers soaked in gutter water. Somewhere across town, in a van that had already changed streets twice, a little girl named Ava was disappearing. And Noah had 3 blocks left to run to a courthouse that might already have decided who he was. He swallowed hard, eyes on the officer, and started talking. The officer didn't write anything at first. He just stood there with his body angled between Noah and the street like Noah might bolt, eyes flicking over Noah's torn hoodie, the bruising already darkening on his throat, the papers on the ground. "Name," the officer said. "Noah Reed." "Age." 16. The officer's gaze dropped to the soaked court paper again. "You live around here?" "No, group home on Mercer. Noah forced himself to breathe through the ache in his ribs. "I was going to court. I had a hearing." The officer finally pulled out a small notebook. "And instead you decided to, what, fight 2 men over a kid you don't know?" Noah lifted the keychain. The plastic angel looked stupid in his palm, like a toy from a vending machine. The name on the back was real, though. Ava. "She dropped it," Noah said. "When they grabbed her, she had a backpack. It broke open. Crayons, doll." "Slow down," the officer cut in. "Describe the men." Noah swallowed. He could feel the moment slipping, like sand through his fingers. If he messed up a detail, it would become the thing they used to doubt everything else. "Driver," Noah began, focusing hard. "Late 30s, maybe. Thin face, dark hair, hoodie. He had a phone out filming. Passenger, bigger, long sleeves. Said I'd be dead. He punched me. He had something in his pocket. Metal." The officer wrote, then looked up. "License plate?" "I didn't get it." Noah hated how weak that sounded. "But there's a camera. Pawn shop," he pointed. "Right there. It faced the van." The officer glanced where Noah pointed. "All right." Another cruiser pulled up. A second officer stepped out, older, with a bored heaviness in his posture. He looked from Noah to the scattered papers. "What's this?" the older one asked. "Possible abduction," the first officer said, not fully convinced. The older officer snorted. "Kids in a fight outside a laundromat and we're calling it abduction." Noah's jaw tightened. It wasn't a fight. She was screaming. "Everybody screams," the older officer said, already leaning toward disbelief like it was more comfortable. The first officer held up a hand, then turned back to Noah. "You said her name is Ava." Noah turned the keychain so the officer could read it. The officer's face changed, just a flicker, because now there was a name, not a story. "All right," the first officer said. "We're going to pull the camera footage. You're coming with us to make a statement." Noah's heart thudded. Can I go to my hearing first? I'm late, but..." The older officer laughed once. "Kid, court doesn't wait for you." Noah felt the words hit like a second punch. It's today. It's about my placement." The first officer's expression stayed professional, but he didn't promise anything. "We'll do the statement quick." Quick. Like this could be quick. Noah looked down at the courthouse direction, 3 blocks away, and felt a sickness in his throat. He'd been told his whole life that being late meant you didn't care, that missing an appointment meant you were irresponsible, that the system didn't have time for excuses. He'd heard it from caseworkers, judges, foster parents, teachers, people who always had somewhere safe to go after the conversation ended. He got into the cruiser anyway, because Ava's keychain was still warm in his hand and he couldn't drop it like it meant nothing. Inside the station, the air smelled like old coffee and disinfectant. Noah sat at a metal table in a small room with a camera in the corner. The officer slid a form toward him. The questions came like bullets. Where were you standing? What did you see? What time? What direction did the van go? What color exactly? Any markings, any accents, any numbers, any logos? Did you touch the van? Did you hit anyone? Noah answered until his throat felt scraped raw. And then, because the world loved timing, his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He stared, then answered because something in his gut told him it mattered. "Noah," a woman's voice said, tight with panic, "this is Ms. Hartman." His caseworker. Noah's stomach dropped so hard it felt like falling. "I'm at the courthouse," she said. "Where are you?" Noah pressed the phone to his ear, eyes on the officer who was still writing. There was a kidnapping. I'm at the station. I had to..." Silence for one beat. Then Ms. Hartman exhaled like she was trying not to snap. "Noah, you understand how this looks?" "How it looks?" Noah repeated, disbelief flashing into anger. "A girl got taken." "I'm not saying that didn't happen," Ms. Hartman said quickly, like she was covering herself. "I'm saying your hearing is happening right now. The judge is here. The foster family is here." Noah's hands went cold. "Please tell them. Tell the judge. I can't." "There are procedures," Ms. Hartman said, and her voice went into that caseworker tone, flat, careful, trained. "You missed your time. We'll have to reschedule, but that's not easy." Noah's pulse hammered. "Just tell him why." "I will mention that you had an incident," Ms. Hartman said. "But Noah, this is adoption-related. Reliability matters. Showing up matters." Noah stared at the table, the metal edge cutting into his forearm. "So what, you want me to say I should have let her go?" "That's not what I said," Ms. Hartman snapped, then softened immediately. "Just stay where you are. Don't make anything worse." The call ended. Noah sat there with the phone still at his ear, hearing the dial tone like the sound of a door closing. The officer across from him cleared his throat. "Your social worker?" Noah nodded once. "You got court?" the officer asked, and his tone wasn't cruel, just curious. Noah swallowed. Today was supposed to be the day. The officer leaned back, tapping his pen. "All right, we're going to do what we can about the footage, but you understand. Without a plate, without an ID, without the kid's guardian reporting..." "I have her name," Noah said, and it came out too sharp. "Names can be written on anything," the officer replied gently. "You did good by calling attention, but we need more." Noah wanted to scream. He'd done more than call attention. He'd put his body in front of a van. He'd gotten punched. He'd risked getting dragged inside. He'd missed court. More. The officer stood. "Wait here." Noah sat in the empty room, staring at the camera in the corner like it was watching him fail. His mind kept replaying Ava's eyes on the other side of the van window. That look wasn't just fear. It was recognition. Like she'd decided he was her only chance. 2 hours passed in pieces. An officer coming in to ask the same question again, a different officer checking his bruises, someone handing him a paper cup of water like he was a witness, not a kid whose life was slipping sideways. When the first officer came back, his face was tighter. "We pulled the pawn shop footage," he said. Noah's chest jumped. "You got the plate?" The officer hesitated just long enough to make Noah's hope twist. "The camera angle's bad," he said. "It catches the van, but the glare on the plate, we can't read it." Noah's mouth went dry. "But you can see her." "We can see movement," the officer said carefully. "We can see you run up. We can see the scuffle. We can't clearly see a child's face." Noah's hands curled into fists under the table. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying we'll file it," the officer replied. "We're going to put out a bolo for a white van in the area. We'll canvass. But if the family doesn't report..." "She was screaming," Noah said, voice shaking. "She was gagged. How does a family not report that?" The officer's eyes didn't meet his for a second. "Sometimes people don't want the police involved." Noah stared at him, and in that stare, a new, colder thought formed. What if someone did report, and it got buried? What if they already had a plan for this, like they had a plan to film Noah punching back? The officer slid another paper toward Noah. "Sign your statement." Noah signed with a hand that wouldn't stop trembling. By the time he stepped outside, daylight had shifted. The courthouse hearing was long over. The world had kept moving, and Noah had stayed trapped in a room trying to convince adults that a kid mattered. He walked back to the group home because he didn't have anywhere else to go. He didn't even call Ms. Hartman again because he could already hear her tone, consequences, patterns, choices. The group home sat behind a chain-link fence with a keypad gate that beeped like a warning. Inside, the common room TV played a game show too loud. Two younger kids argued over a controller. The staff on duty, Mr. Klein, looked up as Noah entered and immediately frowned at Noah's bruised throat. "What happened to you?" Mr. Klein asked. Noah stepped inside, the gate clicking shut behind him like a lock. "There was a kidnapping. I tried to stop it." Mr. Klein's face stayed skeptical. "You tried to stop a kidnapping?" "Yes." "And you missed your hearing," Mr. Klein said, like he already knew. Noah's stomach sank. "Mrs. Hartman told you." Mr. Klein's phone buzzed on the counter, and he glanced at it. "She said you didn't show." Judge wasn't thrilled. Noah's jaw tightened. "I was at the police station giving a statement." Mr. Klein's expression didn't change much. "Uh-huh." That sound, "uh-huh," was worse than an insult. It was the sound of someone deciding the story before hearing it. Noah pushed past him. "I need to call them, the family." Mr. Klein stepped into his path. "You don't get to just call whoever you want whenever you feel like it, Noah. You know the rules." Noah stared at him, heat rising in his chest. "It was my adoption hearing." Mr. Klein's eyes narrowed slightly, not unkind but firm. "Then you should have been there." Noah felt something snap in him, something small, careful, hopeful. He backed up one step, forcing himself not to explode, because exploding was exactly what people expected. Exploding was the story they liked because it made everything simple. He turned toward the hallway instead. In his room, the walls were bare except for a corkboard with old paperwork and a photo he wasn't sure he was allowed to keep. Him standing beside the foster couple who'd been coming to see him for months, Lena and Mark Whitaker. They'd taken him to diners and sat through awkward silences and asked him what he wanted to do after school, like his future wasn't a joke. They'd told him they didn't expect him to be perfect, just honest. Noah stared at that photo until his eyes burned. He sat on the edge of his bed, pulled out his phone and typed a message anyway, even though he wasn't sure he was allowed, even though Mr. Klein would probably find out. "I'm sorry. I didn't skip. I tried to stop a kidnapping. Please don't think I didn't care." He stared at the screen, then added, "Her name is Ava. I have her keychain." He hit send. The message went through, and then his phone rang almost immediately. Noah answered fast. "Hello?" Lena Whitaker's voice came through, tight and trembling. "Noah? Where are you?" Relief hit him so hard it hurt. "Group home. I'm sorry. I swear We were there," Lena said, and Noah heard something in her voice that wasn't just upset. It was fear. "The judge asked why you weren't present. Ms. Hartman said you had an incident and couldn't be reached." Noah's throat tightened. "I was at the station. I told her." Mark's voice cut in, deeper, controlled. "Noah, did you get in trouble?" "No," Noah said quickly. "I mean, there was a fight because they were taking her and he punched me and he filmed me. Like he wanted it to look like I attacked him." Silence. Then Lena whispered, "Oh my God." Noah gripped the phone so hard his knuckles whitened. "They said the camera glare hid the plate, but there's footage, there's witnesses. Mark interrupted, voice steady but strained. "Noah, listen. The judge, he didn't cancel everything, but he continued it. He said your absence is concerning." Noah felt the words land like a sentence. Lena spoke again, softer now, like she didn't want to hurt him but couldn't avoid it. "He set another date, but Noah, he asked if we were sure. He asked if this is a pattern." Noah stared at the blank wall. Pattern. The word the system used like a knife. "It's not," Noah said, and his voice shook. "I didn't choose this. I did the right thing." "I know," Lena said, but she sounded like she was trying to convince herself too. "I know you did," Mark's voice lowered. "We're coming by tomorrow. We want to see those bruises and that keychain, and we want to talk to Ms. Hartman ourselves." Noah's chest tightened with a sharp hope that hurt worse than the despair, because hope had always been the thing that made the fall longer. "Okay," Noah whispered. "Okay." After the call, Noah sat still, listening to the group home noises outside his door. TV laughter, kids arguing, the staff's footsteps, the ordinary sounds of a place where nobody expected miracles. He took Ava's keychain out of his pocket and set it on the bed beside him. A plastic angel with tiny wings. It looked like nothing. But Noah knew better, because the men in that van had been late to something, and they'd had a phone ready to film, which meant they weren't just snatching kids in panic. They were practiced, and now they knew Noah's face. Noah lay back on the thin mattress staring at the ceiling, feeling his bruised throat pulse with every swallow. In the hall, Mr. Klein's voice rose as he talked on the phone, low and annoyed. "Yeah, Hartman, he's back. Says he stopped a kidnapping." "No, I don't know. He's got marks on his neck." "Uh-huh." Noah's stomach tightened. Because Ms. Hartman wasn't the only adult getting calls today, and the way the man outside the van had said, "Miss your little court date," like he'd known, came back to Noah with a cold, sick clarity. Someone had known where Noah was supposed to be. Someone had wanted him not to show up, and someone had just heard from the staff phone in the hallway exactly where Noah slept at night. Noah barely slept. Every time his eyes closed, he saw the van door sliding shut, heard Ava's breath cut off, and felt that calm voice saying, "We're late." At some point he dozed for minutes at a time, waking whenever footsteps passed his door or when the radiator clicked, convinced someone was standing outside. Morning came gray and thin, the kind of daylight that made the group home look even more tired. Noah sat up before the wake-up call, showered fast, and pulled on a hoodie that didn't hide the bruises on his throat. The mirror showed him a version of himself he hated, a kid who looked like he'd been in a fight, a kid adults would judge in half a second. Downstairs, Mr. Klein handed him a plastic bowl of cereal without meeting his eyes. "Your caseworker called," Mr. Klein said. "She's coming by later, and you've got visitors at 10. Noah's chest tightened. "The Whitakers?" "Yeah," Mr. Klein said, and his tone made it sound like a problem. Noah forced himself to eat even though his stomach twisted. He kept glancing at the front windows. Every white vehicle that passed made his pulse spike. At 9:57, a silver sedan pulled up outside the fence. Noah stood before Mr. Klein even told him to. He was already at the gate when the car door opened. Lena Whitaker got out first. She moved like she'd been holding her breath for a full day. Mark came around the other side, jaw set, carrying a folder under one arm like he'd spent the morning collecting proof. They both stopped the second they saw Noah's neck. Lena's hand flew to her mouth. "Noah." "It looks worse than it is," Noah lied immediately. Mark's eyes narrowed, zeroing in on the bruising like a detective. "That's a handprint," Noah swallowed. "Forearm. He had me like that for a second." Lena stepped closer, careful, like she didn't want to spook him. "Did anyone take pictures? Did the police document this?" Noah shook his head. "They asked if I wanted medical. I said no. I didn't want to waste time. I thought if I got them details fast, they'd move." Mark exhaled through his nose. "They always say that, and then they tell you they need more." Noah looked at him, surprised. Mark's voice held something Noah recognized, frustration that came from knowing systems didn't move for people who didn't matter. Lena reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. "I'm taking photos right now, front, side, close up." Mr. Klein appeared behind Noah like a shadow. "You can't just photograph residents without—" Mark cut him off calmly. "We have permission from Noah, and this is evidence." Mr. Klein opened his mouth, then closed it again, weighing the hassle of pushing back against two adults who looked like they belonged in courtrooms, not group homes. Noah led them to the small visitation area, plastic chairs, a table bolted to the floor. Lena sat close enough that Noah could smell her perfume, clean and normal, the scent of a life that didn't include security cameras in bedrooms. Mark set his folder on the table. "First thing, I called the station this morning. They confirmed they filed a report, but they wouldn't tell me anything else." Noah's heart jumped. "Did they say if she was found?" Mark hesitated. "That's the second thing. There was a call last night about a child found near the county line, not officially connected, just a child. They wouldn't confirm a name. Noah's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. Ava. Lena leaned forward. Noah, tell us everything again, every detail, not the fight part, the parts that matter, the van, the men, anything you saw that doesn't seem important. Noah took a breath and told them. The laundromat, the backpack, the driver filming. The words were late. The metal flash in the passenger's pocket, the security camera glare, the keychain. He slid the plastic angel across the table to Lena. Lena turned it over and read the name. Ava. Mark stared at the little angel for a long moment. This doesn't look like something a kid would have as a keychain unless it came from a place. A fair. A mall machine. Noah nodded slowly. Yeah, like one of those claw machines. Mark looked up. Do you remember any other sound, music, a jingle, anything that would tell us where she'd been before the van? Noah searched his memory, hearing that scream again. There was a ringtone, the driver's phone, like an old song. I don't know. Lena's eyes softened. It's okay. We'll work with what we have. Noah didn't believe in we anymore. Ms. Hartman thinks I messed up. Mark's jaw tightened. We're meeting her. Today. As if summoned by his words, the door opened. Ms. Hartman stepped in carrying her clipboard like a shield. Her hair was too neat. Her face was arranged into professional concern. She stopped when she saw the Whitakers. Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker, she said, I wasn't aware you would be here this morning. Mark stood. We requested to meet. We also requested that Noah's hearing be rescheduled as soon as possible with the reason entered into record accurately. Ms. Hartman's smile tightened. The judge has already continued it. With what explanation? Mark asked. Ms. Hartman shifted her clipboard. I told the judge Noah had an incident and was unable to attend. Noah's throat tightened. You didn't say I was at the police station. Ms. Hartman's eyes flicked to him. Noah, I had limited time. The judge was on the bench. Mark stepped closer, voice still even. You could have said, he intervened in a suspected abduction and provided a statement to law enforcement. That's not complicated. Ms. Hartman's cheeks flushed. I did not want to present speculation. It's not speculation if there's a report, Mark said. We have a name. We have injuries. We have footage, even if the plate is unclear. Ms. Hartman sighed, the way adults did when they were about to explain why the system was about to hurt you and it wasn't their fault. Look, I understand you want to see Noah in the best light, but the court is focused on stability. When a youth misses a hearing, Lena cut in, voice trembling, not angry but fierce. He missed it because he tried to save a child. Ms. Hartman's eyes softened slightly, but it was the softening of someone who still believed consequences mattered more than context. And that's admirable, but it still raises concerns. Noah has had multiple disruptions. He reacts impulsively. Noah stood so fast the chair scraped. Impulsive, he snapped. She was screaming. Mr. Klein appeared in the doorway again, like he'd been waiting for Noah to raise his voice so he could label it. Mark put a hand out, palm down. Noah, sit. Noah sat, breathing hard, fists clenched under the table. Mark looked back at Ms. Hartman. What's the status on the child? Ava. Ms. Hartman's expression flickered, quick and strange. I don't have that information. Have you asked? Mark pressed. Ms. Hartman lifted her chin. That's a law enforcement matter. Lena leaned in. Ms. Hartman, did you know about the kidnapping before Noah told you? Ms. Hartman blinked. Of course not. Mark didn't look convinced. Then why did you describe it to the judge as an incident like it was misconduct? Ms. Hartman's mouth tightened. Because the court is not. Because it's easier, Noah said quietly. Everyone looked at him. Noah stared at the clipboard in Ms. Hartman's hands, at the neat lines of paperwork that decided lives. It's easier to say I didn't show than to say I did something that makes the system look slow. Ms. Hartman's eyes hardened. Noah, that's not fair. Noah let out a short laugh that had no humor. Nothing about this is fair. Mark opened his folder and slid a printed sheet across the table. We spoke to a family attorney this morning. We're requesting a supplemental hearing statement and an updated placement recommendation. Also, we want a copy of Noah's full file. Ms. Hartman stared at the paper like it offended her. That's not standard. It's legal, Mark replied. Ms. Hartman drew a breath, then nodded stiffly. I will follow procedure. No, Mark said, voice still calm. You will correct the record. A silence settled. Ms. Hartman looked between Mark and Lena like she was calculating whether pushing back would cost her more trouble than giving in. Finally, she said, I'll submit an addendum. Noah didn't feel relief. He felt the same cold realization he'd had the night before. Adults would do the minimum unless forced. Lena slid the keychain back toward Noah. Can we take this to the station? Show them? Ask about the child found near the county line? Ms. Hartman shook her head immediately. Do not insert yourself into an investigation. Mark's eyes narrowed. We're not inserting ourselves. We're advocating. Lawfully. Ms. Hartman's tone sharpened. If you do too much, it can complicate everything. Noah stared at her. Complicate for who? Ms. Hartman didn't answer. Mark took the keychain anyway and placed it carefully into a small plastic bag he'd brought, like he'd planned for this. We're going. Mr. Klein stepped forward. Noah can't leave without... Ms. Hartman lifted a hand, cutting him off. It's fine. He can go with them for a few hours, supervised. Noah walked out with the Whitakers, feeling the gate buzz and open like it was granting him permission to breathe for the first time in a day. In the car, Lena kept glancing at Noah's reflection in the rearview mirror. You sure you're okay? She asked. Noah nodded, then hesitated. I don't know. Mark drove like someone who didn't want to waste a second. We're going to the station. We'll ask for the detective. We'll request to see the footage. If they refuse, we'll document that too. Noah stared out the window at passing streets and felt something twist in him. Hope again, dangerous and bright. At the station, they waited in a lobby with hard chairs. A TV mounted in the corner played local news with subtitles. Noah tried not to watch, but his eyes kept drifting back. A headline rolled across the bottom. Child found safe after overnight search. Noah's breath caught. The anchor's voice came through. A child found near a rest area, disoriented but alive. A family requested privacy. Authorities said there was no ongoing threat to the public. Noah stood so fast, Lena grabbed his arm. Noah. That's her, Noah said, already shaking. Mark stared at the screen, then turned toward the front desk. We need the detective on the abduction report from yesterday. Now. The desk officer gave the practiced look of someone who hated the word now. Name? Mark gave it. The officer disappeared for a moment, then returned. Detectives tied up. Mark leaned in slightly. A child was found. We have evidence that links to her identity. We need confirmation whether it's connected. The desk officer's eyes flicked to Noah's bruises. Kid, were you involved in an altercation yesterday? Noah's stomach tightened. Here it was again. The narrative. I tried to stop it, Noah said. The desk officer nodded slowly, like he'd already heard a version that sounded less heroic. Have a seat. They waited another 10 minutes. Noah watched the lobby door, the hallway, anyone who might emerge. His hands wouldn't stop moving. He kept touching the spot on his throat where the man's arm had been, as if the bruise was a reminder and a warning. Finally, a detective came out. Tall, tired eyes, rumpled suit. He didn't look at Noah first. He looked at Mark and Lena like adults were the only people worth addressing. Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker, the detective said. I'm Detective Sato. I understand you're here about a report involving your friend. Our foster placement candidate, Mark corrected. And yes, we saw the news. A child was found last night. We believe it's connected. Detective Sato's expression didn't shift. We can't confirm identities of minors on an active case. We have a keychain with a name, Mark said, holding up the bag. Recovered at the scene. The name is Ava. For the first time, the detective looked directly at the keychain. His eyes narrowed slightly. Noah felt a surge. That's her. That's the girl. Detective Sato looked at Noah, then at Mark. Where did you get this? Noah picked it up after the van left, Mark said. The detective took the bag carefully, like it mattered more now that an adult had delivered it. He examined it, then said, We'll log this into evidence. Noah leaned forward. So she's found? The detective's gaze was flat. A child was located. She's with her guardians. Noah's heart pounded. Was it her? The detective held Noah's stare for a beat too long. Then he said, "You did the right thing reporting what you saw." That wasn't an answer. Mark's voice hardened. "Detective, yesterday you told Noah you needed more. Today you have a name and physical evidence. We want to know if you're pursuing the suspects." Detective Sato's jaw tightened. "We're pursuing all leads." "Why did the news say no ongoing threat?" Lena asked, voice tight. "If men are taking children, the situation is being handled," Detective Sato replied, and the words sounded like a wall. Noah felt his hope crack. "Are you saying it wasn't kidnapping? That she just, wandered off?" Detective Sato's eyes flicked to the hallway behind him, then back. "Sometimes cases are more complicated than a witness understands." Noah's hands clenched. "I saw her being dragged. She was gagged." Detective Sato leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "Noah, listen to me. I'm not calling you a liar. I'm saying your involvement ends here. You gave your statement. We have this. Now you go back to your placement and stay there." Mark stepped forward. "With respect, you don't get to tell a child to go back to where he's vulnerable when the people he interfered with may retaliate." Detective Sato's eyes narrowed. "Do you have reason to believe they know him?" Noah's throat tightened. He saw the passengers smile again. "Heard the words about court. He knew about my hearing." Silence hit. Detective Sato's expression shifted, small but real. "How would he know that?" Noah shook his head. "I don't know, but he said it, like he was laughing at it." The detective stared at Noah for a long moment, then straightened. "I'll note it, but don't turn this into paranoia." Mark's voice went low. "It's not paranoia if it's accurate." Detective Sato handed the bagged keychain back for a second, then took it again as if reminding himself it belonged to the system now. "We'll process this. That's all I can tell you." He turned to leave. Noah felt something rise in him, hot and sharp. "So that's it? She gets found and everyone pretends nothing happened?" Detective Sato paused at the hallway entrance. He looked back at Noah with a tired, warning look. "Be careful who you accuse, Noah, and be careful who you talk to." Then he walked away. Noah sat back down, heart pounding, realizing the detective hadn't sounded like someone dismissing a kid. He'd sounded like someone who knew exactly what Noah was up against and didn't want to say it out loud in a lobby full of ears. They left the station with nothing but the same fear wrapped in new words. In the parking lot, Lena pressed her hands to her face. "Why won't they just tell us?" Mark stared at the building like he wanted to punch it. "Because someone asked them not to." Noah's stomach twisted. "The family." Lena lowered her hands slowly. What if Ava's parents don't want it public because," Mark shook his head once, "because they're scared, or because someone has leverage?" Noah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. No image, no emoji. Just 4 words that made Noah's skin go cold. "Go back to court." Noah stared at it, pulse in his ears. Mark noticed. "What is it?" Noah didn't answer right away. He looked up, scanning the lot, the cars, the people coming and going. Across the street, half block down, a white van rolled slowly past the station entrance and kept going without stopping. Maybe it was nothing. But Noah knew the shape of that door. He knew the way it moved, like it had all the time in the world. He showed Mark the text. Mark's face went still. Lena whispered, "Noah." Noah's fingers tightened around his phone until it hurt. "They know." Mark's voice dropped, controlled and hard. "We're not taking you straight back." Noah stared at the street, at the van disappearing into traffic, and felt the old truth settle into his bones. He hadn't just missed a hearing. He'd stepped into something that was already watching him. And now, whoever it was, they were close enough to text him. The Whitaker's house sat in a quiet neighborhood with trimmed hedges and porch lights that clicked on before dusk, like the street had rules it actually followed. Noah stepped out of the car and just stood there for a second, staring at the front door. A normal door, a normal driveway, a basketball hoop above the garage that looked like it had never been ripped down by a landlord. Lena noticed him freezing and kept her voice soft. "It's okay. Just come in." Noah walked up the steps like he was entering a museum, like one wrong touch would get him kicked out. Inside, the air smelled like laundry detergent and dinner prep. A clock ticked in the hallway. There were framed photos on the wall, vacations, birthdays, a dog Noah hadn't seen in months because the dog had died and Lena had cried when she told him. Real memories, not paperwork. Mark locked the door behind them, then did something that made Noah's chest tighten. He turned on the porch light and the living room lamp, brightening the whole front of the house like he wanted anyone watching to know they weren't hiding. "We're not sneaking," Mark said, almost to himself. "We're documenting." He pulled out his phone, opened the camera, and panned slowly across the living room, then toward Noah. "Noah, say the date and time." Noah blinked. "What?" "Just do it," Noah swallowed. "It's Thursday, 4:37. Mark nodded and stopped recording. "If anyone tries to say you weren't here or you left, we have proof." Lena hovered near the kitchen, twisting her hands. Do you want food? You probably haven't eaten." Noah's stomach tightened at the kindness. "I'm fine." "You're not," Lena said quietly, then forced a small smile. "But you can pretend after you eat." Noah followed her into the kitchen. She set a plate in front of him anyway. Sandwich, chips, a cut apple, like feeding him was an act of defiance. Noah took a bite because refusing felt rude and because his body was tired of running on adrenaline. Mark sat at the kitchen island with his folder open, laptop out. Papers were spread like a battle plan. "Noah," Mark said, "we need a timeline." Noah chewed, nodded once. Mark began listing it out, anchoring everything to exact minutes. When Noah saw the events turned into clean lines, 9 o'clock hearing, 9:03 incident, 9:20 statement, footage pulled, contact from Hartman, continued hearing, his throat tightened. Because it looked like what the system always accused him of, a kid who didn't show. But then Mark added the texts, the photo of the group home, the command to admit he lied, the intimidation logged with Lieutenant Alvarez. Mark looked up. "This is not just Noah got into a fight. This is witness tampering." Lena slid a chair closer to Noah. "Can we call Ava's family ourselves?" Noah's stomach flipped. "We don't even know her last name." Mark tapped his pen against the paper, thinking. "The news said the Guardians requested privacy. That means the station knows. And if the Guardians are claiming misunderstanding, they're either terrified or involved." Noah stared down at his plate. What if she's not safe even now?" Lena's eyes filled. "She has to be." Mark didn't soften it. "We assume nothing. We prove." Noah's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Noah didn't want to open it. He watched the screen light up like a warning flare. Mark noticed immediately. "Don't touch it. Screenshot it first." Noah's fingers shook as he took a screenshot, then opened the message. "You have one night." Noah's mouth went dry. He showed them. Lena's hand flew to her chest. "One night for what?" Mark's eyes went hard. "For you to disappear, or for them to make you look guilty." Noah's skin prickled. "How?" Mark leaned forward. "They already hinted at their plan. You hit him on camera. Next step is either a formal complaint or they stage something. They show up, provoke you, capture you reacting, or they plant something and tip off the police." Noah stared at him. "Plant what?" "Anything that fits a story," Mark said. "A stolen phone, drugs, a weapon, something that turns you from witness into suspect." Noah felt cold spread through his chest. "They can do that?" Lena whispered. "People do worse." Mark stood, walked to the back door, checked the lock, then the windows. He didn't look panicked. He looked like a man finally allowing himself to believe danger was real. "We're calling Alvarez again," Mark said. He dialed. The call went to voicemail. Mark left a brief message with the new text, the time, and their location. Then he called the attorney. While he spoke, Lena kept glancing out the kitchen window like she expected headlights to slide across the driveway. Noah tried to swallow, but his throat still hurt. He kept thinking about the man at the bus stop, not the kidnapper, but someone else, someone who watched, a network. Mark ended the call and looked at Noah. "Attorney says we should request an emergency hearing on your placement and safety." Noah's chest tightened. "A hearing? Again?" "Yes," Mark said. "But this time we go in with evidence and with law enforcement involvement. We force the court to see the intimidation." Lena's voice shook. "What if the judge still thinks Noah is trouble?" Mark's tone didn't change. Then the judge says it on record while we have proof he saved a child and got punished for it. Noah stared at the table. Punished for it. That was exactly what it felt like. A sudden sound made all three of them freeze. A car door outside. Not a slam like a neighbor. A careful close. Mark moved first, lifting a hand for silence. He walked toward the front window without turning on any more lights. Noah's pulse pounded in his ears so loud it drowned the ticking hallway clock. Mark peeked through the blinds. His face tightened. Lena's whisper came out shaky. "Mark?" "There's a car parked across the street," Mark said quietly. "No headlights. Engine off." Noah felt his stomach drop. "Is it them?" "I don't know," Mark replied, "but they want to be seen." Lena pressed her fingers to her mouth. Noah could see the thought in her eyes. "We brought him here. We made ourselves a target." Mark stepped away from the window and grabbed his phone. "Calling 911, Noah's chest tightened. "What if that's what they want? Police showing up here? It'll look like we're protecting a minor witness," Mark cut in. "And if someone's watching, they'll know we're not alone." He dialed. Noah listened to him give the address, explain witness intimidation, explain the car. Mark didn't embellish. He sounded calm, which somehow made it more serious. While they waited, Noah's phone buzzed again. A new message. "Check your backpack." Noah's blood turned to ice. He hadn't even thought about his backpack since yesterday. It was leaning by the entryway, slumped like it was harmless. Noah stood slowly, legs weak. "My backpack?" Mark's eyes snapped to him. "Don't touch it," Noah swallowed. "They said check it." Mark moved toward the entryway with careful steps, like approaching a trap. He stopped a few feet away. "Where has it been?" "No idea," Noah whispered. "Group home. My room." "I brought it with me." Lena's voice shook. "What are they implying?" Mark stared at the bag without moving. "That something is inside it, and they want us to find it, or for police to find it." Noah felt sick. They can," Mark said quietly. "If someone had access at Mercer, or if you were followed." Noah's hands trembled. "I didn't do anything." "I know," Mark said, and his voice held something heavy. "But that's not the point. The point is the story they want." Outside, headlights swept past, then stopped. A vehicle pulled up at the curb. Mark exhaled once, controlled. Police. 2 officers stepped out. Mark opened the door before they could knock, holding his hands visible. He spoke fast and clear, showing them the texts, the photo, the intimidation report number. The officers' faces changed as they read. One of them glanced at Noah's bruised throat and then at the car across the street. One officer spoke into his radio. The other asked, "Where's the backpack?" Noah's chest tightened. He hated how quickly the question came, like they'd already been trained to look for the angle. Mark pointed. "There. We have reason to believe it may have been tampered with." The officer nodded, then pulled on gloves from his pocket like this was suddenly evidence, not school supplies. He approached the backpack carefully, lifted it by a strap, and placed it on the floor near the doorway. "Anybody see it move?" the officer asked. Noah shook his head, throat tight. "No." The officer unzipped it slowly. Noah held his breath so hard it hurt. The zipper opened. The officer's gloved hand went in, and then his posture changed, subtle but immediate. He pulled something out, a small plastic bag. Inside it, white pills. Noah's vision blurred. Lena made a choked sound behind him. Mark's voice went flat with shock. "That is not his." The officer didn't look convinced yet, not because he thought Mark was lying, because the object itself demanded a response. Noah couldn't breathe. I swear." The other officer lifted his radio again, voice lower now, more urgent. The first officer stared at Noah. "You sure you don't know how this got here?" Noah's throat burned. "I don't. I didn't put that there." Mark stepped forward, controlled but fierce. "This is exactly what we warned. We have intimidation texts from an unknown number. We have a photo of his residence. We have a car parked across the street. You think that's coincidence?" The officer's eyes flicked to the street again. "We're going to secure this as evidence." Noah's hands shook so hard he had to clench them into fists. Across the street, the parked car's engine started, slowly, like it had been waiting for this exact moment. The car across the street didn't speed off. It rolled away smooth, almost polite, as if whoever sat behind the wheel wanted the officers to see it leaving, wanted it to feel like a choice, not a panic. One of the officers took a step toward the curb and lifted his radio. "Dispatch, we've got a vehicle leaving the area. Dark sedan, unknown plate, heading east on Maple." The sedan turned the corner and vanished before anyone could move to intercept. No screech, no chase, just gone. Noah stood in the doorway like his bones had turned to glass. The plastic bag of pills sat in the officer's gloved hand like a verdict. "I didn't," Noah tried again, but his voice broke. Lena's hands hovered at her mouth, eyes wet, terror pushing all the air out of her. Mark didn't look at the pills for long. He looked at the officer, and his tone sharpened into something careful and legal. "Officer, do not put that back in the bag," Mark said, "and do not touch anything else inside it without documenting. Chain of custody matters. You opened it in front of us. You found it in front of us." The officer glanced at him, then nodded once, surprised by the firmness. "I'm securing it. That's evidence." Mark's gaze didn't waver. "Evidence of a setup." "We received an anonymous message telling us to check the backpack minutes before you arrived. That message needs to be entered into the report." The second officer, younger, kept glancing between Noah and the bag. "You got those messages saved?" Mark held up his phone. "Screenshots. Times. We also have an existing witness intimidation report with Lieutenant Alvarez from earlier today." The older officer's posture shifted slightly. Less suspicion, more calculation. He looked at Noah again, not as a criminal yet, but as a kid who had just been placed in the center of something he didn't understand. "Where'd the backpack come from?" the officer asked Noah. Noah swallowed. "The group home. My room. I brought it here." "Was it out of your sight at any point today?" Noah's mind raced back through the day. Station lobby, diner booth, car seat. "Maybe at the group home. Staff can come in. They do room checks." Mark cut in. "And they knew his location. Someone texted him a photo of the group home gate. That's on record." The younger officer spoke into his radio again. "Requesting contact with Lieutenant Alvarez. Possible witness intimidation escalation and evidence tampering." Hearing Alvarez's name calmed Noah by 0.5%, like a rope thrown into water. The older officer turned the backpack upside down over a clean evidence sheet. A pencil case fell out, a notebook, a pack of gum, then a second plastic bag. Noah's stomach lurched. The officer picked it up and held it to the porch light. Empty. Just a bag. Noah couldn't tell if that made it better or worse. "Okay," the officer said slowly. "This isn't a normal situation. Nobody's getting hauled in right now, but we're taking this and we're documenting everything." Noah's knees almost gave. "So, I'm not tonight," the officer said, careful with every word. "But understand me. If this turns out to be yours," "It's not," Mark snapped, then took a breath, reining it in. "Sorry." "It's not." The younger officer's radio crackled. "Lieutenant Alvarez is en route." Lena let out a shaky exhale like she'd been holding it for an hour. They waited on the porch under the bright light while the officers kept the evidence kit open on the entryway floor. Mark filmed quietly from the side, capturing the bags, the timestamps, the officers' badge numbers, everything. Noah stared at his own backpack like it had betrayed him. He could still feel the straps against his shoulders from yesterday morning. He'd carried it to court like it was a simple thing. School books, paperwork, a pen. Now it was a weapon aimed at his future. Minutes later, a police SUV rolled up. Lieutenant Alvarez stepped out, hair pulled back, posture straight, eyes already scanning the street. She climbed the porch steps and took in the scene in one sweep. Noah pale, Lena shaking, Mark filming, 2 officers with gloves and evidence bags. "What happened?" she asked. Mark handed her his phone without wasting breath. "Unknown texts escalated. They told us to check his backpack. We called 911 about a car sitting across the street. Officers arrived, opened the backpack, found pills." Alvarez's eyes flicked over the screenshots. Her expression tightened into something sharp and contained. She looked at Noah. "You didn't touch the bag after the message?" "No," Noah said, voice thin. Alvarez turned to the older officer. "You logged it?" "Not yet," he said. "We were waiting." Alvarez nodded. "Good. Log it now. And I want the bag tested for prints, Noah's and anyone else's. Also, get me the call log from the group home. Who accessed his room in the last 24 hours? The officer blinked. We can request records. Request them, Alvarez said, not raising her voice but making it clear it would happen. Noah stared at her. Can you tell them it's not mine? Can you make them believe me? Alvarez held Noah's gaze. I can't force belief. I can force procedure. And procedure is what protects you. Mark's jaw clenched. Detective Sato said there were politics. Are we there yet? Alvarez's eyes narrowed slightly. We're past it. She stepped closer to Noah, lowering her voice. Noah, do you still have the original number that texted you? Not just screenshots. Noah nodded and showed her. Alvarez took his phone, went into the message thread, and took it from him gently, like she didn't want him to delete anything by accident. Good. We're going to preserve this data. Lena's voice trembled. Who would do this? Alvarez didn't answer with guesses. She answered with certainty. Someone who wants him discredited. Someone who benefits if Noah becomes the problem instead of the witness. Noah's throat tightened. So they can close Ava's case. Alvarez's eyes flicked toward the dark street. Or keep it quiet. Mark stepped in. What about the car across the street? They left as soon as the pills came out. Alvarez nodded. We're pulling doorbell cameras from this block. Anyone who has a camera gets a knock tonight. Plate, faces, anything. They wanted you to see them. That means they're confident. Noah felt cold. And people who are confident don't stop. Alvarez glanced at the pills, then at Noah. This is what they do next, Noah. They keep pushing until you break, until you lash out, until you give them something real to film. Noah swallowed hard. I'm not going to. Alvarez studied him. Good. Because starting now, you don't go anywhere alone. Not to the bathroom, not to the driveway, not to the mailbox. You understand? Noah nodded, but the humiliation of it burned. He wasn't a kid being protected. He was a target being managed. Mark's voice turned low. What about his hearing? He'll try to use this. Alvarez straightened. I'll make a call to Child Services tonight, not Hartman, her supervisor. And I'm putting in writing that Noah is a witness in an active intimidation case. If any placement decision is made without considering safety, it becomes liability. Lena's eyes widened. You can do that. Alvarez nodded once. Watch me. She pulled out her phone and stepped off to the side, turning her back as she spoke. Noah caught fragments. Juvenile witness, evidence tampering, emergency protective placement. If you move him without coordination, you endanger him. Mark watched her with something like respect. Noah watched her with something like disbelief, because adults didn't usually fight for him unless it was paperwork in their favor. When Alvarez returned, her face was set. Supervisor's aware. They're sending someone in the morning, not Hartman. Noah's chest tightened. So she's not coming? She's not making decisions about you tonight, Alvarez said. And if she tries, I'll shut it down. The older officer sealed the evidence bag, labeled it, and read the log out loud as Mark filmed. Time, location, finder, witnesses present. Alvarez watched every step like she was daring the system to slip. Then, finally, after the officers left with the evidence, silence settled over the Whitakers' porch. The street looked normal again. No parked cars, no shadows, just porch lights and quiet houses. But Noah felt like the quiet was a lie. Inside, Lena locked the door and leaned against it, shaking. Mark checked every window again. Noah stood in the living room holding his phone like it was a live wire. Another buzz. Noah flinched, then looked. No new message, just a missed call. Unknown number. And beneath it, a voicemail icon. Noah's throat tightened. He looked at Mark. Mark held out his hand. Play it on speaker. Record it. Noah tapped the voicemail and pressed play. A man's voice came through, low and calm, like he was leaving a message for a delivery. You're making this hard, Noah. You were late yesterday. You can be late again. Tomorrow you tell the judge you lied about the girl. Or you'll learn what it feels like to have nobody believe you. Ever. The voicemail ended. Lena made a strangled sound. Mark's face went dead still. Noah stared at his phone, feeling the threat slide under his skin and settle there. They hadn't just planted pills. They'd used his name. Which meant this wasn't random. This wasn't a scare tactic from a stranger who guessed. This was someone who knew him, someone close enough to know his hearing was tomorrow, someone close enough to think they could rewrite the truth by force. Noah swallowed, voice barely a whisper. They're not trying to scare me. Mark's eyes didn't leave the phone. They're trying to own the story. Noah's hands trembled. And if they own the story, I lose everything. Mark leaned forward, voice controlled and absolute. Then tomorrow we don't walk into court with just your word. He tapped the screen where the voicemail sat, saved and recorded. We walk in with their voice. Noah didn't sleep at all this time. He lay on the guest bed staring at the ceiling fan as it turned slow, listening for every creak in the house. Every time a car passed outside, his body tensed like it was about to stop. The voicemail sat on his phone like a loaded gun. He'd played it once. That was enough. At 5:12 a.m., Mark knocked softly and opened the door without waiting. "You up?" Mark asked. Noah let out a humorless breath. "Was I supposed to be asleep?" Mark's mouth tightened. "Fair." He held up his phone. "Attorney's on the way. He wants us at his office by 7. Court's at 9. We're not walking in unprepared." Noah pushed himself upright, throat dry. "What if they do something before we get there?" Mark's eyes stayed steady. "Then we make sure we're never alone, never off camera, and never without a witness. This morning is about controlling variables." Downstairs, Lena had coffee on and a stack of printed screenshots on the table. Texts, timestamps, the photo of the group home gate. She'd printed them like she was building armor out of paper. Her eyes were red, but her hands were steady. "Eat something." Noah shook his head, then forced himself to take a few bites because his stomach felt like it was eating itself. At 6:30, a black sedan pulled into the driveway. A man stepped out wearing a plain suit and carrying a slim briefcase. He wasn't old, but his face looked tired in a way Noah recognized, like he'd spent his life dealing with people who could destroy you with a sentence. Mark opened the door before he knocked. "David, thanks for coming." The attorney's gaze flicked to Noah's bruises. "Noah Reed?" Noah nodded. David walked in, set his briefcase down, and didn't waste time. "Show me everything." They sat at the table. Mark handed over the printed screenshots. Lena played the voicemail from her phone while David recorded it on his own device, asking Noah to repeat the date and time out loud. Noah did, voice flat. "Thursday, 8:41 p.m. Voicemail came in at 9:03 p.m. David listened twice, then looked up. That voice used your name. It referenced court. It referenced the girl. That's not random. That's targeted intimidation of a juvenile witness." Noah's hands clenched under the table. "Can you prove who it is?" "Not yet," David said. "But we don't need a name to make it matter. We need to show the judge a pattern. You acted, you reported, and then you were threatened and framed." Mark leaned forward. "They planted pills in his backpack." David's eyes narrowed. "Do we have documentation of the discovery?" Mark held up his phone. "Video. Officers opening it, finding it, bagging it." David nodded once. "Good. That's protection. And it also tells me something." Noah swallowed. "What?" "They're escalating," David said, "which usually means they're on a timeline." Lena's voice trembled. "Timeline for what?" David didn't soften it. "For the court. If they can make Noah look unreliable or violent today, they cut the legs out from under his testimony and they poison his placement." Noah stared at the table. "So, today is their deadline." "Likely," David said, "which means today we do the opposite of what they want. We don't hide. We don't get emotional. We go in calm, with evidence, and we ask for two things: emergency protective placement and a revised hearing statement entered into the record." Mark exhaled. "Hartman already messed up the record." David's eyes sharpened. "Then we corrected in open court." Noah's stomach twisted. "What if the judge doesn't care? What if he thinks I'm just making excuses?" David leaned closer. "Noah, judges care about one thing above speeches: documentation, and we have it. Threats, police involvement, evidence tampering. We're not asking for sympathy, we're asking for safety." Noah wanted to believe him, but court had never felt like safety. Court felt like being measured by someone who already decided the result. They left in 2 cars, Mark driving Noah, Lena following behind. David drove separately. Mark kept the route irregular, turning where he didn't need to, checking mirrors every few seconds. Noah watched the traffic like it was full of predators. Every white van made his heart jump. When they reached David's office, the parking lot was quiet. David led them inside and closed the door. He sat Noah down and ran through a short script. If anyone asks why you missed the hearing, you say, I intervened in a suspected abduction, called for help, and provided a statement to law enforcement. I have a report number. Nothing more unless asked. Noah nodded, forcing the words into his head. David continued. If anyone brings up the altercation, you say, the suspects recorded me to misrepresent self-defense. I have received intimidation messages and evidence was planted in my belongings. Again, facts only. Noah's mouth went dry. What if they show the video of me swinging? David didn't blink. Then we show the texts that predicted that narrative. The timing matters. They told you, you hit him on camera. That's intent. Mark's phone buzzed. He checked it and his face tightened. It's Hartman. David held out his hand. Put it on speaker, Mark answered. Ms. Hartman. Hartman's voice came through bright and controlled. Mark, I heard Noah stayed with you overnight. Mark's tone stayed flat. Approved by Lieutenant Alvarez. Documented. A pause, tiny, irritated. Yes, I'm aware. I'm calling because we need Noah at court early. The judge will not appreciate delays. Noah felt his jaw clench. Even now, the focus was the judge's appreciation. David spoke smoothly. Ms. Hartman, this is David Keller, counsel for the Whitakers. Noah will be there on time. We will also be requesting to address the record regarding yesterday's hearing and new safety concerns. Silence. Then Hartman's voice sharpened. This is highly irregular. David's voice stayed calm. So is a juvenile witness being threatened. We'll see you in court. Hartman exhaled, audible. Fine. But understand, Judge Carver is focused on stability. If Noah appears escalated, David cut her off. He will appear factual. Goodbye. He ended the call before she could speak again. Noah stared at the phone. She's trying to paint me as the problem again. David nodded. Yes. And we don't let her. At 8:35, they headed to the courthouse. Mark parked close to the entrance. David walked beside Noah like a barrier. The courthouse doors felt heavier than Noah remembered. The security guard glanced at Noah's bruises, then at David's suit, and let them pass without comment. Inside, the hallway smelled like old carpet and paper. Noah's palms were sweating. He kept expecting another buzz, another message. But the phone stayed silent, which was worse. They reached the courtroom. Outside, the door stood Ms. Hartman with her clipboard. She looked up, saw David, and her smile thinned. A couple stood nearby. Lena and Mark's faces softened when they saw Noah, but Noah's chest still tightened, because he recognized the way people looked right before they were told to doubt you. Then Noah saw someone else. A man leaning against the far wall, pretending to scroll his phone, baseball cap low, long sleeves, the same kind of flat, assessing look. Noah's stomach dropped. He wasn't sure it was the bus stop guy, but it was the same energy. The man glanced up, met Noah's eyes for half a second, then looked away like Noah wasn't worth the effort. David noticed Noah's stare. What is it? Noah swallowed. I think someone's watching. David's gaze flicked, quick and precise. He didn't stare. He didn't react big. He simply said, Good. Then he can watch us do this in the open. The bailiff opened the courtroom doors. Case of Reed. Next. Noah's heart slammed against his ribs. Mark put a hand on Noah's shoulder, solid, grounding. Lena's eyes were wet again, but she nodded like she was holding him up without touching. David leaned in, voice low. Remember, facts. Breathe. Let them be the ones who panic. Noah stepped forward, past Ms. Hartman, past the man in the cap, into the room where adults would decide if he deserved a home, while somewhere out there, the people who took Ava listened for him to break. Courtrooms were built to make you feel small. Noah felt it the second he stepped inside, the high ceiling, the hard benches, the seal on the wall like a reminder that the room had power, and he didn't. The air was stale with old paper and old decisions. Judge Carver sat behind the bench, glasses low, already tired. His gaze moved over Noah like an inventory list: bruised throat, tense shoulders, too young face trying to look steady. Ms. Hartman stood at the side with her clipboard, composed, professional, as if nothing outside her schedule could be important. Lena and Mark sat behind Noah. David took the seat beside Noah and set his briefcase down with controlled calm. The bailiff called the case. In the matter of placement review for Noah Reed, Judge Carver looked at Noah. Mr. Reed, you failed to appear yesterday. Noah's throat tightened. He felt the words wanting to trip over each other. I tried to stop a kidnapping. I got punched. They took her. But David's voice in his head anchored him. Facts. Just breathe. Noah swallowed. Your Honor, I intervened in a suspected abduction on my way to court. I provided a statement to law enforcement and remained at the station. Judge Carver's eyebrow lifted slightly. A suspected abduction. Ms. Hartman stepped forward immediately. Your Honor, Noah reported an incident, yes, but it was chaotic and unverified at the time. I did not want to present speculation. The word speculation hit Noah like a shove. David rose smoothly. Your Honor, if I may. David Keller, counsel for the prospective adoptive placement, the Whitakers. This is not speculation. There is a police report number, and there is documented escalation in the form of witness intimidation. Judge Carver's gaze sharpened. Witness intimidation in a placement hearing? David didn't blink. Yes, and evidence tampering. I am requesting the court allow a brief record correction for yesterday and address immediate safety concerns. Ms. Hartman's lips tightened. This is highly unusual for a placement review. David's tone remained flat. So is a juvenile being threatened to recant. Judge Carver leaned back slightly, looking at Noah again. Mr. Reed, did you call the police? No, Your Honor, Noah said. I yelled for people to call. A woman did. The police arrived. I went with them. Judge Carver's gaze dropped to the bruises on Noah's throat. Those injuries are from this event? Yes, Noah said, keeping his voice steady. I was grabbed and punched. Ms. Hartman cut in, controlled. Your Honor, the concern is that Noah inserted himself into a dangerous situation rather than proceeding to his hearing. We have a long history of impulsive decision-making and David's chair scraped as he stood again. Objection to characterization. There is no record of violence by Noah Reed, and to call it impulsive to attempt to prevent an abduction is troubling. Judge Carver held up a hand. Ms. Hartman, let's keep to facts. Hartman nodded, but the nod was tight, almost resentful. Judge Carver turned to David. Counsel, what exactly are you presenting? David opened his folder, pulled out printed sheets, and handed them to the bailiff, who delivered them to the bench. Screenshots of multiple messages sent to Noah Reed's phone number from an unknown sender, David said. A photo sent to him of his group home gate, a message instructing him to tell the judge you lied, and a voicemail where the sender uses Noah's name and references court directly. The judge's face didn't change much, but his eyes sharpened as he read. Noah felt the room tilt. This was the moment where people decided if he was believable or just noise. Judge Carver looked down. Mr. Reed, did you respond to these messages? No, Your Honor. Judge Carver nodded once. And the voicemail? David tapped his phone. With the court's permission, I can play it. Hartman's head snapped up. Your Honor, we can't authenticate. Judge Carver cut her off. I'm not ruling on authenticity. I'm listening for context. David pressed play. The speaker crackled slightly, then the calm male voice filled the courtroom. You're making this hard, Noah. You were late yesterday. You can be late again. Tomorrow you tell the judge you lied about the girl, or you'll learn what it feels like to have nobody believe you. Ever. Silence landed hard after it ended. Noah felt Lena's hand touch the back of the bench behind him, as if she was holding herself in place. Mark sat rigid, jaw clenched. Ms. Hartman looked like she'd swallowed something bitter. Not fear, annoyance. Judge Carver stared at Noah for a long beat. Someone is attempting to influence your testimony. Noah swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Carver looked at Hartman. Ms. Hartman, why was the court not informed of this immediately? Hartman's posture stiffened. I only received limited information late last night, Your Honor. David's voice was controlled. Lieutenant Alvarez was involved yesterday afternoon. The placement authorization was issued through law enforcement due to safety concerns. It is documented. Judge Carver's gaze narrowed. Lieutenant Alvarez, present? A voice came from the back. Yes, Your Honor. Noah's heart jumped. Lieutenant Alvarez stood from the back row. She wasn't in uniform today, plain clothes, but she still carried authority like a weapon. Judge Carver looked at her. Lieutenant, are these threats real? Alvarez spoke clearly. Your Honor, we logged an intimidation complaint yesterday. The juvenile received direct contact attempting to coerce recantation. Additionally, during a police response at the Whitaker's residence, contraband was discovered inside Mr. Reed's backpack under circumstances consistent with evidence tampering. We secured it and requested prints. Hartman's head snapped toward Alvarez. Contraband? Noah felt his stomach twist again. This was the part that could destroy him if it sounded wrong. Judge Carver's eyes sharpened. Contraband. In the juvenile's possession. David stepped in fast. Found after an anonymous text told the family to check his backpack. The contraband's appearance aligns with the intimidation pattern. We have video of the discovery and chain of custody. Judge Carver held up a hand, then looked at Noah. Mr. Reed, do you use drugs? No, Your Honor. Judge Carver's gaze stayed hard. Do you understand the seriousness of what was found? Yes, Noah said, voice tight. And I understand they're trying to make me look guilty. The judge looked down at the papers again, then back at Alvarez. Lieutenant, what is the status of the alleged abduction? Alvarez's expression tightened. Active, Your Honor. The child was located. Guardians are not cooperative. Detective Sato can provide more detail. Judge Carver's eyes flicked to the side. Detective Sato, are you present? Noah's chest tightened. Detective Sato stood from the side aisle. He looked tired, but his posture was stiff. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Carver leaned forward slightly. Did Mr. Reed report what he claims? Yes, Sato said. He made a statement. We obtained partial video from a nearby business camera. Plate visibility was compromised by glare. So there is corroboration, the judge said. Yes, Sato replied. Judge Carver sat back, then spoke slowly, choosing words like they mattered. This court is not the venue to adjudicate a criminal investigation, but it is responsible for this minor's welfare. What I'm hearing is that Mr. Reed may be in danger due to his involvement as a witness. Hartman opened her mouth as if to steer it back to stability. Judge Carver raised a hand. Ms. Hartman, I am not interested in abstract stability if the child is being threatened. Hartman shut her mouth. Noah's pulse pounded. He could feel the room shifting, just slightly, away from him being the problem and toward him being the person someone wanted silenced. Judge Carver looked at the Whitakers. Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker, are you still willing to proceed with placement consideration given this? Lena stood, voice shaking but clear. Yes, Your Honor. Mark stood beside her. Absolutely. Judge Carver nodded once. Then here is what will happen. I'm ordering an emergency protective placement pending further review. Mr. Reed will not return to the Mercer Group home until the intimidation concern is assessed. Noah's breath caught. Hartman's face tightened. Your Honor, Judge Carver cut her off. Enough. Noah felt something open in his chest that he didn't trust. Relief. Hope. The dangerous kind. But then Judge Carver looked directly at Noah again, expression grave. Mr. Reed, he said, I want you to understand this. The truth will protect you only if you remain consistent. If you embellish, if you change details, you give your adversaries ammunition. Noah swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Carver nodded. Good. Lieutenant Alvarez, I expect updates. Counsel, file your documentation. Ms. Hartman, you will provide a full addendum to yesterday's record and an explanation for your phrasing of incident. Hartman's cheeks reddened. Yes, Your Honor. The gavel tapped lightly, almost casual, but Noah felt like a bomb had just been diffused by seconds. As people began to shift and stand, Noah glanced toward the hallway through the courtroom doors. And there, just for a moment, he saw the man in the baseball cap again, now closer, leaning against the wall outside like he'd been waiting. He wasn't looking at the judge. He was looking straight at Noah. Then he lifted his hand slightly, 2 fingers to the brim of his cap, almost polite, and walked away. Noah's stomach turned cold all over again, because the court had just protected him, which meant whoever was doing this knew the system didn't win today, so they'd find another way. The courthouse parking lot felt too open. Noah kept expecting a white van to roll in between the rows of cars like it owned the place, or that man in the baseball cap to appear beside the Whitaker's trunk, smiling like a cashier who'd already rung you up. Mark didn't let the moment breathe. Car. Now. They moved as a tight group, Noah between Mark and David, Lena close behind, like a formation. Mark's keys were already in his hand, and he hit unlock twice, scanning mirrors, scanning reflections in windows. Noah slid into the back seat and shut the door. The click sounded final. David leaned in through the open window. Noah, listen to me. You did well. Keep doing exactly that. Facts, consistency. Noah nodded, throat tight. David straightened and looked at Mark. Call me the second anything changes. And don't take him to the group home. Straight home. Public route. Mark nodded once and pulled out. Lena followed in her own car, staying close. Noah watched the rear window the whole time, eyes stinging. He saw a dark sedan 2 cars back for a while. Then it turned off. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. At the Whitaker's house, Mark didn't pull into the driveway right away. He drove past once, slow, checking the street, then circled and came back. No parked cars, no figures lingering. But Noah had learned not to trust quiet. Inside, Lena locked the door and immediately turned on the lights like she wanted the house to be visible from the street. Mark went straight to the kitchen table, laid out papers again, and started making calls. Noah stood in the living room, phone in his hand, watching his screen like it might bite. Then it buzzed. Unknown number. A single message. Court won't save Ava. Noah's chest tightened. He showed Mark without speaking. Mark read it, and his face darkened. They're still watching, Lena whispered. How do they keep getting through? Mark didn't answer. He called Lieutenant Alvarez. This time she picked up. Whitaker, Mark said. They're still messaging him. We got a new one right after court. Alvarez's voice was clipped. Screenshot, send it, and keep him inside. Mark sent it. Noah stared at the words again. Court won't save Ava. It hit different than the threats. It wasn't about Noah recanting anymore. It was bait. Noah, Lena said softly. Sit down. Noah didn't sit. They're saying she's not safe. Mark's eyes stayed steady. That's what they want you to think. They want you to run toward her, alone, without us, without law enforcement. Noah's voice cracked. But what if it's true? Mark's jaw tightened. Then we help her the right way. Noah felt heat behind his eyes. The right way is slow, Mark didn't deny it. Yes, and running into their hands is fast. Noah turned away, pressing his knuckles to his lips. He could still see Ava's face against the van window. He could still feel her cold wrist in his hand. He hadn't saved her. He'd delayed something, and now someone was telling him she still needed saving. Lena moved closer, careful. Noah, if they found her, she's with someone. If that someone is bad, then the system failed again, Noah said, bitter. A knock hit the front door. All 3 froze. Mark didn't move toward it. He lifted a finger to his lips, then went to the side window and peeked through the blinds. His face tightened. It's child services. Lena exhaled shakily. Thank God. Mark didn't look relieved. That doesn't mean safe. He opened the door, leaving the chain on. A woman stood on the porch with an ID badge clipped to her coat. Short hair, serious eyes. Mr. Whitaker? She asked. Mark kept his voice flat. Yes. I'm Dana Price, she said. Supervisor from the county placement office. I'm here regarding the emergency protective placement order. I need to see Noah Reed. Mark didn't open the door fully yet. Lieutenant Alvarez is aware? Dana nodded. Yes, she called my director. Mark opened the chain and let her in. Dana stepped inside and looked around once. Windows, corners, the way professionals did when they were trained to spot escalation. Then she looked at Noah. Noah, she said, not warm, not cold, just direct. I'm not here to interrogate you. I'm here to ensure you are placed safely and that procedure is followed. Noah nodded, unsure what to say. Dana took out a folder. Temporary placement with the Whitakers is approved pending the full review. However, she lifted her eyes. There are conditions. Mark's shoulders tightened. What conditions? Dana kept her tone neutral. No unsupervised travel. No contact with the group home staff except through me. And your phone, Noah's phone, needs to be evaluated for security. The messages are a vulnerability. Noah swallowed. They can take my phone? Dana shook her head. Not take, but we can have law enforcement clone the data for evidence and advise on safety. It stays in your possession unless there's a court order. Mark nodded once. Fine, Dana turned to Noah. One more thing. Ms. Hartman is not to contact you directly. If she does, you document it and tell Mark. Understood? Noah nodded. Then Dana's gaze sharpened slightly. Noah, I need to ask, have you ever met the child you believe was taken? Ava. No, Noah said. Never before yesterday. Dana nodded slowly, like she believed him, or like it didn't matter what she believed, only what she could prove. She flipped a page in her folder. There's pressure on this case. The guardians are demanding privacy. The department is being asked why a youth in care was involved. Noah felt anger rise. Because no one else stopped it. Dana held his gaze. I'm not blaming you. I'm warning you. People may try. Mark's voice turned hard. Then we protect him. Dana nodded once. Good. Because this won't be just about court anymore. This will be about keeping him stable long enough for the investigation to breathe. Noah's phone buzzed again. He looked down. A new message. No threats this time, just a location pin, and 2 words. Rest stop, now. Noah's blood went cold. Lena saw his face. Noah? He showed them. Mark's expression turned into steel. That's where the news said the child was found. Dana's eyes narrowed. Do not go. Noah's voice was barely there. They're calling me there. Mark grabbed his keys out of reflex, then stopped himself, breathing hard. If we go, we walk into their hands. Noah stared at the pin, heart hammering, because if it was bait, it was perfect. And if it wasn't, Ava might be waiting. Noah couldn't stop staring at the location pin. It sat on his screen like a magnet, like if he didn't move toward it, something inside him would tear. The message wasn't written like a threat. It was written like an instruction to a dog that had already been trained. Rest stop. Now. Donna Price's voice cut through the silence. Do not go. If you go, you become controllable. Mark exhaled slowly, forcing his hands to unclench. We're not going. Not like they want. Noah's throat tightened. But that's where she was found. Lena's eyes were wet again. Noah, we can't lose you to save her. The words landed wrong. Noah didn't blame Lena for them, but they still stabbed, because he'd already traded his hearing for Ava once, and now the world was asking what price he'd pay again. Mark picked up Noah's phone carefully, like it was evidence, and held it out to Dana. Can law enforcement trace this? Dana shook her head slightly. Not instantly, but Alvarez can push it through faster. Mark dialed Alvarez on speaker. Alvarez answered on the 3rd ring. Whitaker, Mark's tone was clipped. They sent a location pin. Rest stop, the same rest stop from the news. A beat. Alvarez's voice sharpened. Do not go. Dana spoke into the phone without asking permission. Lieutenant, Dana Price, I'm on site. We're with Noah. We need guidance. Alvarez didn't hesitate. Screenshot it. Send it. Stay put. I'm sending a unit to check the location and a tech to preserve the device data. Noah's chest tightened. What if Ava is there? Alvarez's voice lowered, like she was choosing words that wouldn't break him. If it's Ava, going alone gets you hurt and helps no one. If it's bait, going at all gives them what they want. We'll check it with officers. Noah swallowed hard. They'll be too late. Alvarez went quiet for a half-second. Noah, listen, they're not trying to save Ava. They're trying to move you. The call ended with a promise of a patrol check and a tech visit. Noah stood in the living room while Mark sent the screenshots. Donna wrote notes in her folder like she was building a separate file, one that didn't depend on Ms. Hartman's incidents. Lena paced near the kitchen, hands clasped tight. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Noah's skin buzzed like static. He couldn't sit. He couldn't eat. Every second felt like time he owed Ava. Then a new message came in. No location pin this time, just 6 words. She remembered your face, Noah. His breath caught. He showed Mark. Mark's jaw tightened. They're trying to hook you emotionally. Dana's eyes narrowed. Don't respond. Noah's voice cracked. But what if she did? Lena stepped closer, voice soft. She did. You were the one person who tried. That's true, but they're using it. Noah felt the room closing in. He wanted to punch a wall, run outside, do something, anything that wasn't waiting. A knock hit the door again, harder this time, not polite. Mark moved first, checking the side window. His shoulders eased slightly. Police. He opened the door. 2 uniformed officers stood there, along with a man in plain clothes holding a small hard case. Lieutenant Alvarez sent us, one officer said. This is Forensics Tech Jensen. He's here for the phone data preservation. Noah's stomach twisted. You're taking my phone? Jensen shook his head. Just copying what's on it for evidence. You keep it, but I'm going to put it in airplane mode while I work. Mark nodded. Donna watched closely. Jensen put on gloves, took Noah's phone, and started setting up a cable. You got the message thread open? Noah nodded. As Jensen worked, the officer spoke quietly to Mark. We sent a unit to the rest stop. No sign of a child. No suspicious vehicles at the time of arrival. Noah's heart sank. At the time of arrival, the officer's face stayed neutral. We're canvassing. Noah felt anger rise. So it was bait. Or it was timed, Mark said, voice tight. Dana didn't look surprised. Either way, you didn't go. That matters. Jensen finished, handed the phone back. You should consider changing your number after the investigation secures these communications. For now, don't answer unknown calls. Noah stared at his screen, then whispered, They'll just find the new number. Jensen didn't disagree. That depends who keeps leaking. Silence fell. Donna's pen paused over her notepad. Mark's jaw clenched. Lena's eyes flicked toward the hallway like she could hear a ghost. The officer cleared his throat. Lieutenant Alvarez asked me to tell you something else. Detective Sato just got a call from a hospital near the county line. A minor came in last night, same approximate age as the child found at the rest stop. She was treated and discharged to guardians. There was concern noted by staff. Noah's stomach dropped. Concern like what? The officer hesitated. Like the kid was terrified of going home. Lena's hand flew to her mouth. Mark's voice turned hard. And did the hospital report it? They documented it, the officer said. Whether it becomes a report depends on cooperation. Noah felt cold wash over him. Ava was found. Ava was discharged. Ava might still be trapped, just in a different cage, one with adults and paperwork. Dana's tone sharpened. I want that hospital note, now. If there's a concern flagged, it can trigger a welfare review. The officer nodded. Alvarez is working on it. Noah's phone buzzed again. Another message. Good boy, you stayed home. Noah's vision blurred with rage. He held the phone out with shaking hands. They're here, not inside. Here, watching. Mark took the phone, screenshot it, then looked at the officers. We need patrol presence, tonight. The officer nodded. We can do a drive-by rotation. Noah heard the words and felt how weak they were compared to the power of an unseen person texting him like they owned him. Dana stepped closer to Noah. This is what they do. They want you to feel powerless. The moment you respond, they gain control. Noah's voice came out raw. So what do I do? Just sit and let Ava? Dana didn't flinch. You do what you already did. You make noise that creates records. That's how you beat people who rely on silence. Mark's phone buzzed, an incoming call. He looked at the screen and his face hardened. Detective Sato, he said. He answered on speaker. Sato's voice was low. We have something. A partial plate from a different camera near the laundromat, not the pawn shop. A traffic cam a block over. We didn't have it yesterday. Noah's chest tightened. You got it? Not full, Sato said, but enough to narrow. And the vehicle is registered to a business. Mark's voice went sharp. What business? Sato hesitated. A private transport service. Noah's stomach turned. Like medical transport? Kids transport? Like authorized pickup, Sato said, which is why the Guardians are calling it a misunderstanding. Dana's eyes narrowed. Then it's a cover. Sato's voice tightened. Possibly. We're moving on it, but this is sensitive. Noah, keep your phone on. Don't respond. If they contact you again, you document it. Noah's throat tightened. They want me to go somewhere. Sato paused. Where? Noah hesitated, then said it. Rest stop. The one from the news. Sato's tone sharpened. They're trying to drag you into the open. Mark's jaw clenched. So what's the plan? Sato exhaled. We may use that, not with Noah as bait, with controlled surveillance. Noah's heart slammed. Use it how? Sato's voice was careful. If they're bold enough to send you coordinates, they may be close enough to feel untouchable. That's how you catch people, by letting them make the next move when they think they're in control. Noah stared at his phone, the messages lined up like fingerprints. They weren't just threats, they were instructions. And now, for the first time, someone in authority was talking like the messages could be turned against the sender. Mark's voice was low. We do this safely, or we don't do it at all. Sato replied, Agreed. I'll call you back with details. The call ended. Noah stood in the Whitakers' living room while the officers prepared to leave, patrol plan set, evidence preserved, a partial plate finally surfacing. But the message still glowed on his screen. Good boy. You stayed home. Noah's hands clenched because whoever was texting him didn't sound scared. They sounded amused, and people who were amused didn't stop until someone made them. The patrol car didn't sit in front of the Whitakers' house. Alvarez made sure of that. It drove by on an irregular loop, sometimes every 10 minutes, sometimes every 30, so whoever was watching couldn't predict the rhythm. Noah sat on the couch with the lights on, curtains half drawn, phone on the coffee table like a bomb nobody wanted to touch. Mark and Dana Price talked in low voices at the kitchen island, while Lena pretended to fold laundry she wasn't actually folding. At 9:18 p.m., Mark's phone rang. Detective Sato. Mark answered on speaker. Go ahead. Sato's voice sounded tighter than earlier. We confirmed the transport business tied to the partial plate. It's registered to a shell company. The listed address is a locked office suite with no staff, but the vehicle has been pinged twice in the last week near 2 reported runaway recoveries. Donna's pen paused mid-air. So it's a pattern? Sato exhaled. Yes? And the guardians involved in last night's case, Ava's, have a history of refusing cooperation with CPS. Nothing that sticks. Nothing enough for a warrant, but enough that it's consistent. Noah's throat tightened at her name. So she's not safe. Sato didn't answer directly. We're treating it as a high-risk welfare situation. Mark's voice turned hard. What does that mean in real terms? It means, Sato said carefully, we need them to make a move we can document. We have partial plate, we have intimidation messages, but we still need a link between the sender and the van. Noah stared at his phone. You want them to message again? Sato's voice lowered. We expect they will. They're not done with you. Dana leaned toward the speaker. Noah is not bait. Agreed, Sato said, which is why the plan does not involve Noah leaving the house. We will do controlled surveillance around him. Mark's jaw clenched. Explain. Sato spoke in clipped steps. Lieutenant Alvarez has a unit nearby. We're setting a silent perimeter. If the sender is close enough to feel confident, he's close enough to be seen. The goal is to identify the watcher, baseball cap guy, if he returns. Noah's stomach turned. And if he doesn't? Sato paused. Then we shift. The transport vehicle is still our target. We're prepping a warrant request based on the plate link in the intimidation escalation. Mark exhaled. That's not tonight. No, Sato admitted. Tonight we survive and gather. The call ended with Sato telling them to keep the phone volume on, not respond to anything, and to immediately screenshot every contact. Noah sat very still, trying to make his breathing quiet. He didn't want to admit it, but part of him was waiting for the buzz, waiting for the next instruction, waiting for the next attempt to pull his strings. At 10:02 p.m., the phone buzzed. Unknown number, a single sentence. Look outside. Noah's blood went cold. Mark was already moving. Nobody goes to windows. Lena's voice cracked. Mark held up his own phone, opened the camera, and started recording as he approached the front window from the side, staying out of view. He angled the lens through a narrow gap in the curtain. Noah stood behind him, heart hammering. Outside, across the street, a figure leaned against a streetlight pole like he belonged there. Baseball cap low, hands in pockets, long sleeves, the same flat, assessing posture. Then the figure lifted his head and looked directly at the Whitakers' house, as if he knew exactly where the camera was. He raised his phone. A second buzz hit Noah's screen. A photo loaded. It was a picture of the Whitakers' front door, taken from the sidewalk, close enough to see the wood grain. Lena made a strangled sound. Donna's face tightened, but her voice stayed calm. "Do not react. Don't give him anything." Mark kept recording, zooming slightly, trying to catch facial detail. The man didn't move fast. He didn't run. He stood there another 10 seconds, then walked away at an easy pace, turning the corner like he was going to buy cigarettes. Mark grabbed his keys out of reflex. Dana snapped sharp. "No, you do not chase. That's what he wants." Mark froze, breathing hard through his nose. He turned back, eyes blazing with controlled fury. "He's on our street. And he wants you to do something illegal," Dana said, "so he can flip the narrative, so he can call the police and say the angry foster dad attacked him." Mark's hands trembled. He lowered the keys slowly. Noah's phone buzzed again, a voice note this time. Mark looked at Noah. "We record it." Noah hit play on speaker. The same calm male voice filled the room, almost friendly. "You're protected tonight. That's cute. Tomorrow your protection ends. The pills are already in motion. So here's the deal. You tell them you lied, and you go back to Mercer. You keep pushing, and the next thing we plant won't be found by good people." The note ended. Silence hit like a weight. Lena whispered, "He's telling us he has access." Dana's eyes were hard. "He's confirming the leak." Mark's phone rang immediately after. "Alvarez." Mark answered. "He showed up. We have video. We have a new voice note." Alvarez's voice was sharp. "Stay inside. Email me the video now. Units are moving." Noah's chest tightened. "They can catch him." Alvarez didn't promise. "We'll try." Mark sent the footage. For the next 10 minutes, the house went still, except for the sound of Lena's shaky breathing and Mark's fingers tapping his knee. Then, a call back from Alvarez. "We missed him by a block," she said, "but we have a description, and we have your video. That voice note is gold. We're getting a judge for an emergency warrant for the phone number data and the transport company connection." Noah stared at his phone, dizzy. "So, this helps?" "It helps a lot," Alvarez said. "But listen to me, Noah. He said tomorrow your protection ends because he wants you to believe that. Protection doesn't end. We adjust." Mark's voice was low. "He wants Noah back at Mercer." Donna spoke firmly. "Not happening." Alvarez agreed. "Not happening." The call ended. Noah sat down hard on the couch, hands shaking. His mind kept replaying the phrase, "The pills are already in motion." Like a plan had started rolling and couldn't be stopped. Mark crouched in front of him, voice controlled. "Noah, you hear me? You're not going back there. If we have to sleep in shifts and put a chair under every handle, we will." Noah swallowed, eyes burning. "He said the next thing they plant won't be found by good people." Mark's expression hardened. "Then we make sure only good people find anything. We keep everything in the light." Noah stared at the blank TV screen reflecting the room like a dark mirror. He realized the watcher hadn't come to break in. He'd come to deliver a message in person, to prove he could, to prove he was close, and to remind Noah of the one thing the system had taught him from the beginning. If they could control where you slept, they could control who you became. Noah's phone buzzed one more time. A final message for the night. Mercer isn't the only place with keys. Noah's stomach dropped, because the threat had shifted. It wasn't just about where Noah lived. It was about who else could be opened. Noah didn't remember falling asleep. He remembered Mark wedging a chair under the back door handle. He remembered Lena putting her phone on the nightstand like it was a weapon. He remembered Dana Price leaving just after midnight, promising to return at sunrise, her eyes saying what her mouth didn't. "This is bigger than you think." And then morning hit the house like a quiet shove. Noah woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Mark's voice on the phone, low and clipped. Lena was already dressed, hair pulled back, eyes swollen from fear, but steady now. She looked like someone who'd stopped hoping the world would be kind and started deciding it wouldn't matter. Mark ended the call and looked at Noah. "Alvarez got the emergency warrant." Noah's throat tightened. For what? For the messaging number, Mark said. And for the transport company's vehicle data. They're moving. Lena slid a plate in front of Noah. Toast, eggs. The kind of breakfast that made it feel like it should be a normal day. Noah forced a bite. Are they going to catch him? Mark didn't promise. They're going to pressure him. Noah's phone lay on the table, screen dark. He almost wished it would buzz again, because silence felt like the predator crouching instead of pacing. At 7:14 a.m., it buzzed. Unknown number, one line. Today you get your keys, or you get your cage. Noah's fingers went numb. Mark screenshot it without speaking and forwarded it to Alvarez and David. Lena whispered, "He's still confident." Mark's jaw tightened. Confidence makes people careless. A knock hit the door. Mark checked first, then opened. Lieutenant Alvarez stepped inside with Detective Sato behind her. No uniforms today, but the weight of law clung to them anyway. Sato's eyes went straight to Noah. "You okay?" Noah nodded, but it didn't feel like the truth. Alvarez held up a folder. "We have enough now to move hard. The number is tied to a prepaid account purchased at a convenience store. Cameras got the buyer." Noah's breath caught. "You saw his face?" Alvarez nodded once. "Not perfect, but enough for ID work." Sato stepped forward. "And the transport vehicle's GPS court order gave us access. It pinged last night near your old group home." Noah's stomach dropped. "Mercer." Sato nodded. "He wasn't bluffing about keys." Lena made a sound like pain. "So he has someone inside." Alvarez didn't sugarcoat it. "Or he has access. Either way, we're pulling staff lists, entry logs, and camera records, starting with Mr. Klein." Noah's throat tightened. "You think it's him?" Alvarez kept her eyes steady. "I think he's at least a leak, and leaks get kids hurt." Sato exhaled. "We also have the rest stop angle. The transport vehicle stopped there for 9 minutes last night. Not long enough to pick up a child, long enough to meet someone." Noah stared. "A handoff," Sato nodded. "We're setting units on the transport company's known routes. We're also going to do a welfare check on Ava, properly, without letting guardians control the room." Noah's chest tightened. "Will she talk?" Alvarez's voice went firm. "Not if she thinks she'll pay for it. That's why we bring the right people." Mark leaned forward. "So what do we do right now?" Alvarez looked at Noah. "Right now you stay exactly where you are, and you do something else important." Noah's jaw clenched. More waiting. "No," Alvarez said. "More documenting. You're going to write down every detail you remember from the van. Anything you dismissed. Smell, music, a phrase, a logo, a scratch. Anything. Small things crack big cases." Noah nodded slowly, forced himself to think back again. Exhaust, cheap cologne, the driver's ringtone, the passenger's calm voice, the way the door rattled. Sato's phone buzzed. He checked it and his face shifted. "We have movement," he said. Alvarez's posture sharpened. "Where?" Sato looked up. "Transport vehicle just left a lot near the county line, headed toward the city." Mark stood. "Toward here?" Sato's eyes stayed hard. "Possibly. Or toward Mercer, or toward another pickup." Alvarez spoke fast. "We're going. Mark, Lena, keep Noah inside. Doors locked. Do not answer anything." Noah's chest tightened. "I can come. I can point out—" "No," Alvarez snapped, then softened a fraction. "Noah, you're the leverage. You leaving gives them exactly what they want." Sato paused at the doorway and looked at Noah. "You already did the hard part. You didn't break. That's why we have this chance." Then they were gone. The door closed. The quiet came back. Noah sat at the table with a pen in his hand, writing details like his life depended on handwriting. Mark kept watch at the window without being seen. Lena sat beside Noah, her hand hovering near his elbow like she was holding him to the earth. At 10:06 a.m., Mark's phone rang. He answered instantly. "Yes?" David Keller's voice came through, urgent but controlled. "Mark, Judge Carver just signed the emergency protective placement extension. Noah is officially not returning to Mercer. It's filed." Mark's shoulders dropped by an inch. "Thank you." "And," David added, "there's a foundation in town, motorcycle charity group, the Angels. They heard about this case through the police chatter in the courthouse. They've been asking about Noah. Noah's pen froze. Angels? Mark frowned. What do they want? David's voice was careful. To help, housing, legal support. They've done transitional placements before. Vetted, documented, it's legitimate. Noah's throat tightened. He'd heard of them. Riders who showed up to protect kids at court, men and women on motorcycles who stood like walls without touching anyone. People who looked scary until you realized they were there to keep the monsters away. Lena whispered, "They want to help you." Noah didn't trust it. He didn't trust good news. Good news had always come with a hidden fee. Mark hung up and looked at Noah. "We don't accept anything off the books. But if it's real, if it's structured, this could give you something the system never gave you." "A place," Noah said quietly. "An address," Mark corrected. "An address they can't yank because a staff member got annoyed." Noah swallowed hard. At 11:42 a.m., the front doorbell rang. Mark moved first, checked the camera feed, then opened. 2 motorcycles were parked at the curb, not roaring, not dramatic, just present. On the porch stood a woman in her 40s with gray streaks in her hair, leather jacket patched with a simple winged emblem. Beside her, 2 men and another woman held folders and a small, plain envelope. "Mark Whitaker?" the woman asked. Mark stayed guarded. "Yes. My name's Renee," she said. "We're with the Angels Foundation." Noah stepped into view behind Mark before anyone could stop him. Renee's eyes softened when she saw his bruises. Not pity. Recognition. "We heard a kid did the right thing," she said, "and got punished for it." Noah's throat tightened. "Who told you?" Renee glanced briefly toward the street, then back. "People talk. We don't. We show up." Mark's jaw clenched. "What is this?" Renee held up her folder. "Documentation, court filings, a vetted guardian placement partner, a transitional home held by the foundation. It's clean. It's legal. It's built for kids who need distance from leaks." Noah's heart hammered. "A home?" Renee nodded once. "A small one. Nothing fancy. But yours doesn't mean until someone changes their mind. Yours means your name goes on paper." Lena's eyes filled. Mark didn't move. "Why?" Renee's gaze stayed steady. "Because we've watched too many kids get erased by paperwork, and because this case, it woke up the wrong people. So we're giving you something they can't easily steal, stability with witnesses." She held out the envelope. Inside, Noah could see metal glint. Keys. His hands shook so badly he couldn't reach for them at first. Renee didn't push. "You don't have to take them today. But I need you to hear this. You saved someone's child. So now we're saving you from the part of the system that punishes that." Noah stared at the keys, chest tight, vision blurring. "What about Ava?" Renee's expression didn't shift, but her voice dropped. "Ava's case is moving. Alvarez asked us to be ready. When kids are scared to talk, we stand close, quietly, so they can." Mark's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then looked up, face changing. "Alvarez," he said. He answered on speaker. Alvarez's voice came through, clipped, charged. "We got him, the Watcher, and we got the van." Noah's breath caught so hard, it hurt. Alvarez continued. "He tried to ditch the transport vehicle behind a warehouse. We moved in. He ran. We caught him with 2 phones. One matches the message thread. He's talking now that he's cornered. He gave us a name inside Mercer." Mark's jaw clenched. "Klein." Alvarez didn't say yes or no. "We're handling it." Noah's fingers curled around the edge of the table. "And Ava?" A beat. Then Alvarez said, "Welfare check confirmed fear indicators." She spoke. Just enough. She identified the van. "Noah, she remembered you." Noah's throat closed. Alvarez's voice softened just slightly. "You didn't fail her. You started the chain." The call ended. The house was silent except for Noah's breathing. Renee stepped forward and placed the envelope on the table in front of Noah, not in his hands, letting him decide. Noah stared at it for a long time. Then he picked it up. It wasn't heavy. It should have been nothing, but it felt like the weight of a future that couldn't be slammed shut with one missed hearing. Noah stood, walked to the front door, and looked out at the street, bright in midday sun. Nothing dramatic, no sirens, no van, just a neighborhood that hadn't always been his. He turned back to the people in the room, Mark and Lena, who'd fought for him in public, Dana Price's note still on the counter, Renee and the angels waiting without demanding anything. Noah swallowed hard and opened the envelope. The keys chimed softly against each other. For the first time in his life, Noah held something that didn't feel temporary.